Our webinar is being recorded, and our third presenter is Dr. Jenny Du, with Dr. Shamraha, Faith Filali, and Huda Eldarderi. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say her last name. So the topic is COVID-19 pandemic impacts on traffic system delay, fuel consumption, and emission. Jianhe, is all yours. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Missouri, for the introduction. My name is Jianhe Du. I'm a senior research associate here at Virginia Tech Transportation Institute. And the topic today is the COVID-19 pandemic impacts on traffic system delay, fuel consumption, and emissions. So first, a little bit of background information. In 2019, there were 276 million registered vehicles in the United States. Those vehicles accounted for more than 28% of the total energy consumption and emission. So with such a huge, huge number of vehicles on the road, researchers and the governments are trying to minimize the negative impacts brought by those vehicles. So we thought of a lot of methods. For example, we tried to increase the capacity of the network so that the congestion can be decreased. We tried to apply road pricing, especially for single occupied vehicles, so that we encourage travelers to combine their trips together such that the total number of vehicles can be reduced. And we have all kinds of models to improve the efficiency of our vehicles, including eco-routing and driving, so that people can choose a route that instead of minimizing their travel time, they're trying to minimizing the fuel consumption and emissions. And we also build models for speed harmonization to decrease accelerations and and boundary control, that we encourage travelers to bypass the congested area. And we also identify alternative powers for our vehicles so that we can use the batteries instead of gas in the cars. However, those methods are very effective, but they didn't significantly change the situation. The reason is because there have been so many vehicles in the road already. The system is congested already. So any method that tries to minimize the negative impacts actually only can scratch the surface of the problem instead of solve the problem. There is one potentially effective method that has never been investigated seriously before, was to decrease the overall demand in the system. The reason is because people thought it's probably the most infeasible way, because people need to travel. They have to go to work, they have to get their groceries, they have to go on vacation. So how can people overall just decrease their travel needs? However, until last year, when the COVID-19 hits the world, it actually generated a great opportunity for us to take this solution really seriously, to take a look at what it will do to our system. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions during my presentation, just stop me and I can answer your questions whenever you have them. So over the last year, we saw the global mobility and the traffic volume changes. Here, the table is the data from Google. It actually shows us the mobility, which is the usage of Google Map. So by different destinations. For example, in Virginia, we saw like 50%, 56% of reduction in the usage of Google Map to the destinations of transit stations, and retail and recreation saw like 44%. This number is even bigger in California. the transit stations usage of mobility data of Google actually is almost 60%. And for retail and recreation, 53%. Nationwide, the number is somewhere around 55%. The figure below was provided us by Doha, Qatar. It is the weekly traffic volume from from February 16, 2020 to September 2020, as you can see that Qatar actually has an even bigger drop in traffic volume, especially on the day of May 24th, 2020, the decreasing rate was almost 58.2%. So our goal in this paper, in our study, is to estimate the impacts of reduced traffic demand at the system level. We have already conducted our research in a simulated environment. Our modeling framework includes two major modules. The first one is the QueensOD. QueensOD is a software that estimates the OD matrix for the whole network based on three essential input files: the node file, the link file, and a file with observed link traffic volume. QueensOD can do this by iteratively minimizing the differences between the observed link traffic volume and the estimated link traffic volume. Depending on the locations of the link traffic volumes that you can provide to QueensOD, especially if you can provide like locations that are evenly distributed across the network with traffic counts on major arterials and the freeways, QueensOD can be very effective and accurate. The figure on the right up corner shows the result for one of the subnetworks, one of the test beds I'm going to talk about today in my presentation later on. This is from the Los Angeles subnetwork 1. The y-axis is the estimated traffic volume. The x-axis is the observed traffic volume. As you can see that QueensOD actually provided a R-square of 0.9, which is really high in estimating the link travel volume. So after QueensOD generated the demand, our second module integration will take the demand as the input together with some network files, such as the node file, link file, and intersection signal timing file, and conduct the microscopic simulation. Embedded in integration, there's a model called VT Micro. This is the model that is used to estimate the fuel consumption and greenhouse gases based on instantaneous speeds and acceleration and deceleration of the vehicles. This model was developed and calibrated with the Oak Ridge National Lab data, where they have the vehicle emissions data recorded at different levels of acceleration, deceleration, and speeds. So the figure here in the right side corner, you can see that the VT Micro is very accurate in predicting the gases, the emissions, and the fuel consumption based on speeds and acceleration and deceleration. So here are the test beds that we used in our study. The first 5 test beds are actually all from Los Angeles area, because Los Angeles is a huge city. We divided the Los Angeles city into 5 subnetworks. So you can see the color coded here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The second is the Doha, Qatar. This is the downtown area. And not the second, the 6th actually. And the 7th test bed is the I-66 corridor in Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C. It includes the 3 major roads in the area, the I-66, I-495, and the State Route 50. Those 7 test beds, we selected them as the test beds in this study because those were developed for other projects, the previous projects our team has been doing, and the ODs, matrices, as well as the network has been calibrated to the real data. So those are ready to go. Here are some descriptions of our test bed attributes. As you can see here that Los Angeles sub 1 through 5 are pretty similar to each other. They cover an area of somewhere around 160, 70 to 200 square kilometers. Number of trips simulated somewhere around 500,000. And here are some statistics for the intersections. As you can see that the signal controlled intersections are the most intersections controlled methodologies, accounted for like 80%. For Doha, it's a little different. It's a much smaller area. It only covers an area of 5 square kilometers. However, the intersections are all controlled by signals because this is a network that we calibrated for our simulation just to include the major arterials and freeways. I-66 is somewhere in between. It's more like the Los Angeles networks, but it's much smaller. We simulated morning peaks for the 7 test beds for 4 hours. 12 runs of simulation runs were run, starting from run 1, which has the original traffic demand, and for each additional run, the demand was decreased by 5%. The following MOEs were generated: delays, emissions, which include 4 types of greenhouse gases, as well as the fuel consumptions. Here are the simulation results for Los Angeles subnetwork 1 and the subnetwork 2. So the x-axis represents the percentage in traffic volume, traffic demand. So from 0 to 55, which represents the real situation we observed during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the lines each represents 1 MOEs, like the delay, the fuel consumption, and the different gases. As you can see that for LA sub 1, 10% in demand reduction will generate 15, almost a 20% reduction in delay. The trend goes on all the way until when the demand decreased to only 45% of the original demand, the delay actually reduced 90%, which is really impressive. And the fuel consumption and the greenhouse gases, the reduction rate is not as significantly as the delays, but they are all bigger than the demand reduction. So they reached around somewhere 65% to 70%. Similar result was observed for Los Angeles subnetwork 2. And here are the results for Los Angeles sub 3 and sub 4.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. For the traffic demand, did you consider only transit demand or for car everything?
No, traffic demand, not transit demand.
I mean, for the traffic demand, did you use the Google data that you show us in the first?
Oh, okay. Traffic demand, as I said here, let me show you, was estimated using QueenSOD. This is a software that takes the network input file as well as the observed link traffic volume file as the input files, and then it's by iteratively minimizing the estimated link travel volume versus the estimated and the observed link traffic volumes to reach a destination where it can provide an estimated OD matrices for the whole network.
Okay, I mean that how you get the observed data.
Oh,
Because
those are the observed data are basically from the planning agencies in the local area. For example, the Los Angeles, we got the observed traffic volumes from, I think it's something called Los Angeles Planning Agency. It's a very routine practice for local traffic agencies to collect link travel volumes, especially
okay.
major arterials and the freeways.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So the simulation results for Los Angeles subnetwork 3 and 4 are similar. Same here for subnetwork 5. They are all like generated a reduction in delay of almost a 90% and 60% for fuel consumption and emissions. And here we can see the results for Doha and I-66. There's a little bit of difference here that we observe. For I-66, the delay improvement is even more significant than comparing to the LA subnetworks. We can see that the delay was almost gone. The whole network is free flow because the percentage of savings almost hits the 100%. And similar for the Doha network. The Doha network, in addition to the 100% reduction, almost 100% in delay, it actually has a much higher saving for fuel consumption and the CO2. As you can see here that when the demand reduced only 10%, there was 30% saving for fuel consumption and CO2. And when it reaches to the reduction in demand 55%, it actually hits almost the line of 90% in the delay in the fuel and the CO2 saving. So
Jenna?
yes.
I have a question. Can you go back to previous slide?
Sure.
Why do you think there's more savings in Doha network?
Yes. Thanks for the question. This is my coming slide.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. I like that question. That's a very natural trend of thinking. So those differences in the results actually make us wonder why the same demand reduction in in those 7 test beds actually generates different results. So we did a little bit of investigation, and our conclusions tell us that there are 2 major impact factors. The number 1 is the initial traffic condition. So this table actually shows us the initial traffic conditions across the 7 test beds. As you can see here that the average trip lengths for LA subs, they are very close to each other, like somewhere around 6, 7, 8 kilometers per trip. And the original delay in those areas are very similar as well. It's like 1.5, 1.6 to 2 minutes per vehicle mile traveled. However, if you take a look at the Doha case, the average trip length is much shorter. It's 3.2 kilometers only. However, the delay, the original delay, was 10 minutes per mile traveled. For I-66, the case is a little bit different. The average trip length is much, much longer. It's almost like twice the LA subnetworks, and it's 5 times of the Doha network. The original delay is comparable to LA, a little bit shorter. So we found that in our simulation, if a network is really congested to start with, like the case in Doha, it has a delay of 10 minutes to begin with, it will benefit dramatically with the initial reduction in demand. And this benefit will continue when the traffic demand decreased further on. As well as the I-66, if the trip length in the network is longer, it will benefit more from the traffic demand reduction. And the second category of impact factor we found that are significant for the results is called the network configurations. We used the graph theory indices to measure our network. So here are some very commonly used indices in graph theory. I will not go into too much details about those, but those are indices that are used to measure the connectivity and the dimension of a network. So the alpha, beta, gamma, cyclomatic, and this ATS is a comprehensive index that combined all those indices together that shows how well a network is connected and the dimension of the network. In addition to that, we added one more parameter, which is the road density measured by the road network lengths divided by the covered area. So this actually shows you the degree of development of that network. Here is the results that we got for the 7 test beds. So we can see here that for LA subnetworks, the ATS are somewhere in between 290 to 400, except for the subnetwork 3, which is the downtown area. All the roads are interconnected, and the density of the sub 3 is a little bit higher than the rest of that. But we can, again, we can see how different Doha network is from the rest of the networks. The ATS is much, much smaller, and the road density is much, much smaller as well. And a similar thing for I-66. ATS is similar to the LA subnetworks, but it has a much lower road density measure. It's only like half of subnetwork 1, 2, and only 1/3 of subnetwork 3. So here is what we got. First of all, we believe that decrease the traffic demand is a very significantly effective method to deal with our congestion and pollution problems. As we saw that only 15% of reduction in traffic demand will generate up to 60% reduction in delay, depending on the original traffic condition, how congested the network is to begin with. And when the traffic demand decreased by 55%, which is about the same amount of traffic demand reduction we saw during the COVID-19, it will generate about 90% reduction in fuel consumption and emissions, and up to 100% of reduction in delay. And then we found that there are several factors that will affect the results of this decreased demand. The first one is the initial congestion level. A more congested network to begin with will benefit more when the demand started to decrease. And the traffic features will also affect the final results of the effects from reduced demand. Longer trips with lower road density will benefit more from the reduced demand. And lastly, the network configuration is a very important factor as well. We believe that lower connected network will benefit more from the reduced demand in the network. So that concludes what I try to present today. Is we believe, and I believe, that reduced traffic demand is a very good solution. So I would like to open the floor to our discussions here, because it looks like the COVID-19 is almost gone, I would like to say. Hopefully it's true. Do you guys believe that this is a sustainable solution, which means that can we continue what we see here? Because for me, I will just talk about what I feel. For me, it feels like we probably can permanently cut down the demand in our network globally, because some of the companies already said that the employees can work from home forever. They can choose to work remotely. That means a huge chunk of commuting trips will be cut, and don't really need to make so many trips out there. So if we can do that, actually, I think this is a great idea to solve our congestion and pollution problem. One example that I know is very effective in doing so is that in China, they actually divide the travelers into two groups according to the plate number of their vehicles. So if you have an odd number in your plate, the vehicle plate, you can only travel on odd days. And if you have an even number on your plate, you can only travel on even days, like the 2th or 4th and 6th and 8th. That actually helps a lot to cut down the demand. So I do believe that the COVID-19 actually provided us with this opportunity to think about how realistic this situation can be and how our traffic system can benefit from this. That's all for today. Any questions, thoughts, discussions?
Well,
Go ahead.
I agree. I've been working from home for a year now and realized that probably 90% of my job can certainly be done from home. It has been done from home. And it's starting to feel irresponsible to get all by myself into a gas burning vehicle and drive 25 minutes over to campus to do the work I do at home. I mean, I just don't see the need for it anymore. Certainly occasionally for things like taking photos and attending meetings and some FaceTime with colleagues who I do miss, but the bulk of the work has been done without commuting. I got in the car the other day and I'm like, I got to remember how to drive. How do I turn the rear windshield wiper on again? I had not driven any length in so long. It's like I go to the grocery store back and that's it, So, but it's a different lifestyle, but it certainly feels more sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting one, the point that you addressed. So just a quick question is, since you're suggesting that the output you received is reducing the demand is significantly impacting the reduction of greenhouse gases. In that point, other than working from home, what are the other suggestions that you are proposing in reducing the demand?
Yeah, working from home will definitely help with the commuting trips. I think what else we can do is probably, for example, combine the grocery shopping trips. Or for me, I have been using the dropping off services provided by our local grocery stores. one thing that I think as a systematic solution to reduce the grocery shopping trips can be in the future, even though there's no COVID. You can say in the same neighborhood, one trip. I don't know whether it's realistic to ask several of your neighbors to group together, to teamwork together, or just that this can be something commercially done by the local grocery stores. But I definitely think that things can be moved to the point where one trip can deliver or can solve the grocery needs for like 5-10 families in one neighborhood. That would just definitely cut back the grocery shopping trips. Also, I think I missed the part of the presentation, my previous presentation, but some of the information that I caught is that the automatic vehicles, they can combine several trips together as well. So by using some the models, for example, the ride sharing models, you can combine trips, even for vacation trips together, if the using like a bigger capacity van, which can hold say 15 people. Say there are you and your neighbor both want to go to Orlando, for example, for the spring break. You can just using one van just drop you guys over there, and then that will save you, like you combine 3 trips together into one. That's just some of my thoughts that in addition to the commuting trips. And also another thought is to using the public transit as much as possible instead of using personal vehicles. I think that's another way to cut back the demand.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I have a not question, like my opinion. Like, do you think like it's realistic to working long time from home for people's social and mental development? And also like for like the second one, you said like sharing the big vehicles. Do you think like people will feel comfortable to sharing their like vacation trip with other families? So it's not like realistic, I think.
Yeah. So for the first question, I believe that 100% working from home sometimes can be very stressful, but definitely what I can do, at least for me, I can go to work say 2 days a week, and the rest of the time I can stay at home working. That will cut back at least 60% of the commuting trips. So it does not have to be 100%, but you can choose to just to travel to your office from time to time. And also, as for the vacations, shared trip to vacation, it just came to my mind as just maybe it's not realistic, but maybe we can modify it a little bit. You say you can share your vacation trips with someone you know, someone from your neighborhood, just they happen to decide to go to the same destination, and at least it's not sharing the whole vacation together. It's just to share the trip over there and our trip back. So I think it's more realistic if you are sharing it with someone you know. That's another thought.
Thank you. I actually agree with your first suggestion that hybrid kind of work can be good for everybody. Like some days in office, some days maybe from home.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Can I say something?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the very interesting presentation. So I am a demand person. So I've been studying travel demand for the last 25 years in different countries. So it's true that reducing demand will alleviate congestion problems. The problem is that reducing demand has been proved to be impossible, because the richer we are and the more opportunities we have, the more we travel. So, well, we had the telecommuting for we had the possibility to telecommute for a long time, but this was not, it was not for everybody. So maybe now there is more opportunity to understand that we can telecommute and work from home, so there will be less trips to work. But trips to work are just 1/4 of the total trips. So it leaves us to another 3/4 of the trips that are made for other purposes. And the other thing is that there is a substitution effect. So if we will travel less to work, we will do other things. Like, once we open up, we want to see our friends. We are desperate to see our friends, to see our family, to go shopping, to go to the cinema. So I did a study in Europe where I was comparing what people going to their workplace, and those who did not were not going to the workplace, what they did with their time. And it showed up that the people who were not going to work, they were traveling even more than the people who were going to work, because they had the time to do everything they wanted. Shopping, visiting friends, driving kids around. And I used to say when I made this presentation that those who go to work earn the money, and the others in the family who don't go to work spend the money. And so it's true that we want to reduce demand, but I think what is expect us later after COVID, it's going to be a complex. It's not that easy to predict what is down the line from COVID. I don't know if I gave the meaning of what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. If people don't go to work, they will do something. They will not just stay at home doing nothing. But the issue here is the frequency. Like if you are going to work, the commuting trips, at least it happens twice a day. So I would imagine if I work from home, I would love to see my friends, especially after COVID-19, but I will not see them twice a day. The same thing happened to the shopping trips and other trips. Yes, I agree that, if you are not commuting to work, you have more free time. You are gonna make some other trips. So I'm not saying that if the commuting trip is cut back by 45%, the overall demand will be cut back by 45%. I think, as you said, it'll be a complicated situation, and then the whole system will readjust and reach to a balancing point that, finally everybody's settled down. But I do believe that cutting back commuting trips will generate a reduction in demand overall. Maybe not as like very one-to-one relationship reduction, but I do believe so. I do believe cutting back commuting, especially if, at least for me, I think if I don't commute to work, I believe myself will make less trips.
I know I certainly.
Yes, and our survey. I'm sorry.
I get an extra half
Our
a pound
survey
of steak.
showed that. Yeah,
That's right. You want to go? You want to go first?
that they're like on average or more.
I'm sorry. You were.
Can you hear me?
You were breaking up. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Let me use my. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, our survey was showing that the commute trips to work were over 40 minutes. And even if when they work from home, even if they do some other trips, they're not going to be long trips like that. They're going to go to grocery store near their home or friends or family kind of close, even if they do that. So still a lot of trip going to be cut and a lot of delay going to be reduced, I think.
Yeah, that actually, I think that actually verify what I doubt about is because, commuting trips are higher in frequency and much longer in distance. So according to our conclusions, actually, those are the most significant impacts on our network delay and emissions. So if those can be cut back, even though, like Cynthia said, that I want to go to a movie, I will go to a movie theater that is close to my home. So I think to switch a longer trip to a shorter trip, I think it's still worth it.
Yes, and interestingly in our survey, many people, they like to do working from home, teleworking. A lot of people, they like to do that even after COVID. And now most of the workplaces have the infrastructure for that. Like all this online meeting softwares and apps and stuff that all agents have been using now. And we didn't have it a year ago. We didn't have Zoom. So now the infrastructure is much better and people are trained and they know how to do it and they practiced it. So it's going to be much easier.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. And Nancy, you were trying to say something?
Oh, I was going to say, you know, like you said, the commute is twice a day, and I wouldn't particularly drive anywhere in the morning, I don't think, to replace that. But I am sleeping a half an hour later because my commute was, I had to allow at least a half an hour to get to work on time. And now it's sleep, and I feel like that's healthier. Because Americans don't get enough sleep. And on the other end, it's, you know, I quit work at 5 o'clock and walk right into the kitchen and start dinner. And you have time to cook something as opposed to running through the drive-through at 5:30 on the way home. So again, I feel it's also a healthier lifestyle. Now, the flip side of that is the isolation, you know, because you don't see as many people and that's not always as good. Is particularly if you live alone, which I do not. So that's not a problem for me, but I can see if you lived alone, that isolation might outweigh the benefits of sleeping in a healthier diet.
Yeah, true.
Another thing I've wondered about is, you know, I have learned, and I never shopped online before, but I am now like, there's no way I'm going to run to Kmart or Walmart when I just need some, you know, just the regular stuff you need, sponges and light bulbs and toilet paper. I just have that sent to my door now. But to me, it seems more efficient to see the UPS truck come down and he stops at all my neighbors and then he's on my porch. But there may actually be more trucks on the road. So it'd be interesting to see if that is actually creating more emissions because trucks are bigger or less because fewer cars are going to the store individually.
Yeah, I would like to see the after COVID period of new traffic condition as well. I think it's gonna be, you know, the trade-off among this thing and that thing, and the final result will be very interesting.
Yeah, this is Anita. I just think that it's a balancing act with both of them, of course. And we just got to find the right balance there, because just as Nancy mentioned, a lot of people were shopping online. So that put a lot of trucks on the road. So it'll be interesting to see after the COVID to do a study to see what things look like after, because that emissions, the emissions from a truck is much greater than the emissions that's coming from a vehicle.
Yeah. I can add that to my to-do list. I can change the composition of my vehicles in my simulation to see how that plays out.
Yes, because that was, watching, listening to family and friends, and everyone's like talking about the Amazon drivers, their best friend now, because Amazon, and I look out my window every day and I see an Amazon truck up and down my block 5 or 6 times a day. So yeah, that's that would be interesting to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Amir. I just wanted to ask you one question here that do you see any difference between the actual trends for in reduction in delay in urban and suburbs, or actually not? I mean, after the actually COVID.
Are you asking about after the COVID or during the
After
COVID?
the COVID, or actually both? Both.
Okay, so if during the COVID, because the 7 test beds that I used are actually all urban, more like urban setup.
Yeah.
Because like I said, those were networks that we developed for in our previous studies, which were aiming at using some highly congested area to start with. So those are all more like a urban setup.
Okay.
So to answer that question, I'm not sure how suburb or rural area will react to this demand reduction. But according to our conclusions, I would imagine because urban, the rural or suburb area is less congested to start with, I would imagine that the effects will be less significant comparing to what I have here. And according to your second question, you were asking about the differences after COVID-19. It depends on how people would do after COVID, especially the policy of working from home and everything. I don't know. It's if everybody is going back to work, everything would go back to normal, I would guess. But if the commuting trips will be cut back, like we were discussing earlier, this will be more like a rebalancing process and then reach the final balancing point of this whole migrating process. And then we will see what will be different if the commuting trips are cut back significantly, but with other trips go up.
Yeah.
So that'll be something interesting to see. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure. Any other questions, thoughts, suggestions, advices?
Jenna, it's Kyung again.
Hi, Kyung-ho.
Yeah, okay, can you go back to Doha and I-666, that slide? Yes, okay. After that slide. One thing I wanted to check is, have you compared the average speed changes between those like demand changes? The one thing I want to make sure is that in case of Doha is urban setting, so average speed is very, very slow, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But in case of the I-66, it's normal condition. There's a very highly congested road, but when demand levels goes down like maybe 20%, then speed goes to LOS, level of service A.
Mm-hmm.
So I think average speed also affects some what happened in this simulation.
True. The issue here is that the speed is more like a dynamic parameter. So,
yes.
So instead of using one number, I think, yeah, probably in the future we can take a look at the changing trend of the travel speed to see how that plays into the final result.
And also, in case of, because your analysis is based on VT micromodel, and it is affected by instantaneous because speed and acceleration, and then if congestion level changes, the people's driving behavior changes. So that means it can be, people can be more aggressive, or depending on the congestion area, behavior changes.
Uh-huh.
So I think you also need to consider that as an
That's
input
a
variable or something like that.
very, very good point. That's a very good point.
That's my thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Any other?
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you so much, Jianhei.